Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Yeah, which one's Mike?
What, the mic or the mic?
The Mike.
The mic is here. The mic is in the house.
So do people on the street call you Mike occasionally? Or because people will say, hey, Glenn, how you doing? You do that podcast, right? And I'm like, well, I do, but I'm not Glenn.
You know, I get all kinds of stuff. It's fun. You know, it's just fun to engage. You know, I get all kinds of stuff, especially out there on social media. It's amazing how. I mean, I not so much anymore because I really cut down my social media presence. In fact, I was on TikTok with Callie Crawler, and I don't know how I got that name. It was just kind of given to me by TikTok, I think.
Wait, that's your name?
Yeah. On
Callie Crawler?
Callie Crawler on TikTok.
Maybe because your infamous times in your California rehabs.
Maybe because I crawled to those rehabs. That's a good point. But I can't remember how I wouldn't have come up with that name, so I'm not sure how I came up with it. So anyhow, I'm on that. So I shut that account down. So now I'm only out there on Sober.Coffee podcast. But when I was on Callie Crawler, I mean, it's so weird to hear people talk about
the show.
Yeah, Sober.Coffee, right? And you're like, what? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, that's the best. I'm like, wow, you know.
I had a guy at a meeting yesterday, and he was just coming back into the rooms. He had not relapsed, but from an abstinence standpoint, he was off of the drugs and the alcohol, but he needed the program because he was off kilter. He was emotionally a wreck, right?
Yep.
And somebody walked up to him and said, because he was bemoaning himself because he had like 11 rehab stints. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, you don't hold a candle to Glenn, you know? And somebody did recommend that he listen to the podcast because we have two totally different stories. You know, mine was, and again, I relapsed a million times in my quest to be sober. I mean, I would swear off alcohol and then go right back to it. Swear off alcohol. I mean, deeply swear it off and go right back to it. And but then I went to rehab, and I've never looked back. And here I sit across from the table with the guy who is my hero because you just kept trying. You knew the answer was out there, and eventually, Glenn, you grabbed it. You know.
Yeah, people compliment my sponsor because, you know, he's an angel, and, you know, people have actually said to him years ago, right? I mean, I've been 10 plus years sober now, and but I've been working with him for like 15 or 16 years, and people would say to him, you know, dude, what are you doing? Why are you spending your time with him, right? Why are you spending your time with him? And it was just, and he's like, look, I believe, you know.
Well, you know what? I could say the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous does say, if you're working with, I'm pretty close to a quote here. It's a paraphrase, but I'm pretty close to a quote. It says, if you're working for your guy and he's not ready, move on because, you know, because you again, I'm really paraphrasing here, but don't waste your time with a guy who's not really serious about sobriety, right? And
so I think he knew I was serious.
Yeah, he knew you were serious, right?
One thing that he said, he goes, Glenn, the reason why I kept going is you listened to me and you tried. You were compliant. You really wanted it. You had a lot of stuff going on, and just kept going. You know, but you know, it's funny out there in social media. So can we take a pause for a second?
Take a pause.
I'm going to do something that everybody does out in social media, and we don't do it.
Okay.
But I'm going to do it right now. Everybody at the beginning of every podcast, every show, they're like, hey, click like, you know, subscribe, right? So if you're listening to this, can we ask a favor? And just because we've never done it, I'm not sure why I'm asking you to do it, but everybody else does it, so let's just be like everybody else, right? One, if you're listening, can you click like in whatever podcast platform you're on? and can you write a review? Write a review, just say, hey, checking in, maybe drop your favorite episode title, right? Just something, some sort of review, and then can you share it? Can you share it out there? And I know
you got anonymity.
Yeah,
right.
That's part of our issue, right? Part of our issue is, I've got Glenn's Facebook page, right? That I don't blast a lot of sober stuff on Glenn's Facebook or Instagram page. But I'll put anything on our Instagram or TikTok pages, our Sober.Coffee, right?
Look, and let's go to the why. The why is not so that we can make more money from our sponsorships. We don't have sponsors.
We make no money from
right.
this.
So, but the why is to help the one guy. The why is to help the guy that came into the room yesterday and he was an emotional train wreck. Look, we're no geniuses. We don't got this thing figured out. But the fact is, we're in the pool. We're trying to figure it out, and sometimes by fate, we end up with a good message, solid message at the end of a 30-minute episode. So.
Yeah, the one feedback that we continually get is, we're raw, right? We don't edit. We really speak truth, our truth, right?
Right, our truth.
That's
all we have.
Yeah, and we're pro sobriety, but at the end of the day, it's no secret. In fact, we had somebody. She goes, I don't feel comfortable coming on because I'm not an AA person. I'm like, well, let me clarify. I said, our show is pro sobriety.
Right.
We're cheering for the sober curious. We're cheering for the person just not to drink today. And we know that there's many different programs out there. I said, we've had them all on.
Right.
Then it had to be a Jack, and I'm like, but most of those are shaped after AA in one form or another,
right.
Or they're create your own program.
Right.
And I'm like, I did that, and that just led me to the next hospital.
For you, it didn't work. It's
right.
like people say it didn't work for them. And
right.
my heart goes out to the person who's trying, like you, and AA doesn't work. And I can go on a long dissertation about why I think maybe it doesn't work for them. But the reality is it doesn't work. I don't want them to stop at AA and die, right? I know that sounds
right.
really...
If they can't get their head out of their ass and
right.
Surrender to AA,
right?
And I saw a post the other day. It was unbelievable. I mean, I understand it now because of the experience, strength, and hope that we've been through. But it's very clear to see now. But she put in there, she literally bashed everything about AA, her sponsor, everything. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing to meet somebody that's the smartest person in the room. And I'm like, don't forget, your best thinking got you in that room.
Yeah, right.
So and I was kind of making fun. Not making fun, but just pointing out in a sarcastic way,
sometimes the brain that got you there isn't the brain that's going to get you out of it.
Not sometimes.
Right.
The brain that created the issues is not the brain. You got to surrender and say, hey, I'm going to open up to thinking outside of myself, right? And that's one of the things that AA works. But some of these programs outside of AA, you literally create your own program. So that's staying inside your head, creating your own solution. I mean, I tried that for 5 years.
Well, I tried
and almost
my whole
died.
life. Going back to my opening comment, I mean, I was trying my own way to quit drinking. I tried to quit for my wife. I tried to quit for my kids. I tried to quit for my job. I tried to quit for my health. I tried to quit for my... it never worked.
Best thing that works is just go in and say, man, tell me what to do.
Right.
Right, because my games are done. My input's done. That I am so grateful when I say I hit my bottom. I mean, I had... Inside of me, I was 1,000% convinced I had no next move.
Right.
And I said, I will do anything you tell me to do. And I really meant, I still mean it today.
That's where I was on October 13th, 2018. I was done. I had no more strategy left. And I didn't go to bed the night before going, when I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to come up with a whole new strategy.
I think that's the genius, right, of bottom. It just hits. Like my sponsor, I mean, I'm well over 10 years sober, and my sponsor called me yesterday and suggested that I do something. And I'm like, I got 15, in my mind, 15 other things that are important. I mean, critical that I was doing, and I was taking, roughly 3 hours out of my day. And you know what I said to him? I'll see you there.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, I didn't even jungle gym, and I just cleared my schedule. I cleared what I was doing. I juggled things around, and I'm just like, dude, I'll see you there. And it amazes. It doesn't amaze me because I was there, right? But I really recognize people that aren't to that spot, and they really think that they own their spot on the icy, slippery slope to alcoholic hell.
Yeah.
And they put their stake in that ice, and they're like, no, I'm not going to surrender. I'm going to do it my way. And it might work for 10 minutes a day, a week, a month or two, but you're on that slippery slope to alcoholic hell, and that flag, that foothold you think you have is temporary.
Right.
And if you think if you think you could do it yourself, it's just amazing the people that detox themselves. And, I just sit back and watch because it doesn't work long term.
No, you don't sit back and watch. So you step up and say,
Well,
how
I do,
can I help you?
but there's people who don't want help.
Right.
There's a guy right now. I mean, he just, okay, not ready. Okay.
No.
You can't force them into excellence. They have to be willing to surrender and do the work. So.
Yeah. The same guy I was referring to earlier, who's in a kind of an emotional state. I listened to him, and I felt his pain. And look, I'm no super AA guy, right? I'm just not. I got a long way to.
When was the last time you read the AA book?
Yesterday.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's been a while for me. I'm going to a retreat coming up here. We're immersive AA for the weekend, but
yeah, I'm going. I'm going to be there with you.
Are you really?
I am, yeah.
Dude, hey, give me some bumps, man.
I know,
It's
right?
the first time you've been?
Fun. Yeah, to your retreat. Yeah.
Oh, my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a we sold out 58 guys.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's immersive. It's fantastic.
So this guy is struggling. He's flapping around in the pool, man. He's taking on water, right? And I've got a busy life right now. I've got a busy life. It's all about Mike. I got this going on. I got that going on, right? And I walked up to him after the meeting. I said, dude, you need to be connected. Isolation is going to be your downfall. We need to connect. You need to be connected. I'll be your sponsor. The words just came out of my mouth. I'll be your sponsor until you get one. And I'm like, how did that happen?
I'll tell you how it happened. It has nothing to do with
sponsor.
It's because you didn't volunteer you.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You're holding back.
No, I was going to say God volunteered you.
Yeah.
I mean that's how this shit works.
But I had to.
You think you're in control?
Human being.
Good luck.
I had another human being on the line taking in water. You can't allow that.
So what do you say?
The beautiful thing is, you're going to love this because you're a big fan of. So he texted me back. I didn't have my phone with me because I purposely left it in the car for the meeting, so I wasn't distracted. I said, I don't got it, but here's a piece of paper. Here's my number on it. Old school, really old school. Here's my home phone number. Anyway, he texted me about an hour later and said, hey, I really appreciate that. I was thinking this morning the same thing. I needed one, and I got Big Bill to step up and be my sponsor. And I thought, great, you're in great hands. You're in great hands. So
love Big Bill.
Anyway, I love this guy. I love him for where he's at. He was raw. He was real. And I have the same circumstances played out in my life, meaning that there's pain in my path, but I'm not in pain. Even though there's pain in my path, I'm not in pain because I follow the practices and principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, again, not a fear that this guy's going to go take a drink or a drug, but we don't need to live that way anymore.
All right, so let's do this.
Yeah.
We got 15 minutes left or so. I mean, we're just chatting, and so many times we have guests, and right. So I miss the Mikey banter time, right? But a lot of what we're saying is mumbo jumbo to people who aren't in AA or maybe sober curious, and they don't get it. They don't understand AA. You and I can speak that level of language. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right.
College level, grad school level, whatever. We'll never hit PhD level, but
I think I'm in fourth grade.
Yeah, kind of lingo where you can say one sentence and I can fill in paragraphs and pages of context, right? So let's do this. Let's give, because we we say let's give examples, right? Like maybe you give an example. I give an example of how this shit works in real life. And we were chatting on the phone this morning on the way in, and I mean, one of the keys that you mentioned is, without a doubt, one of the keys I mentioned is when you go to AA and you go to the same meeting, right, on a regular basis. Right? So that's kind of like a key to the recipe here. When you got to go to the same meeting, and then you got to pay attention, right? Like I went to a meeting last night. I literally sat there, and I was doing work the whole time. I sat in the back. I was working the whole time on my phone, and I'm thinking to myself, "What am I here for?" Right? Like I actually heard like 2 sentences, but but if you go to a meeting, in a regular meeting, and you listen and pay attention, and you listen to people's stories, you will watch how AA works and how this shit works and how the miracles happen. You will see it in others before you see it yourself.
I love that. I love that notion because it's real. It happens out there. I think that, first of all, I've learned to keep my phone in the car. Only because I.
Oh, is that a coaching tip for Glenn?
I need to. It's a suggestion.
That's awesome.
Anyway, I agree with you. If you are in a room, and because one of the things I always said to myself was, I don't get it. People, the steps, I owe my life to this program, and I'm like, all right, well, somebody tell me what the program is, and you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. The program plays out as your perception opens up. Right, so I go to a meeting and I might be struggling with an issue, and then as the conversation rolls around the room, my answer is there. Right, it might be the exact thing that they're struggling with, or it might be something very similar. But philosophically, everything is there for you. I learn in those 60 minutes. And you just have to listen. I mean, there's such vulnerability in these meetings you talk about if you allow for it. It could be a very vanilla meeting, or I love the meetings where it kind of goes off the rail and it opens up to vulnerability and a real share. And that's exactly what we got in yesterday's meeting.
Yeah, so let's share. Maybe you share one, I share one. Do you have one off the top of your head?
I do.
All right, go ahead. Shoot.
Yeah. So one of my sponsees is suffering the consequences of his actions out on the street. Right. So
like formally or actively?
Yeah, formally.
Okay. Yep.
So he's still.
So how long is he sober?
He's been sober for four years now, maybe 5. Right.
So can I just point out before you say that? I just want to make a point here because I'd like to refer to it again and again. This stuff takes time.
It takes time, right? He had financial. He had put himself in a financial pickle being out there with the tax man, and it took years. Now, why do I bring that up? I bring that up because, first of all, he's fighting his financial consequences of his drinking and driving and not being responsible with his taxes, right? So he's fighting that.
Ditto.
So one of the things he does, he hunkers back down. It's a perfect scenario. Like you said earlier, God placed him in a home with his mom. He moved back in with his mom, right? Now, he's an older gentleman, established. He hold back in with his mom.
Like 50s, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So now he's living with his mom for 3 years, right? And she passed away just recently, maybe about 6-8 weeks ago. And the reason I'm bringing him up as a topic is what I learned from him is how to not drink when your mom dies.
Right.
Right? So
you went through that.
I went through that. And
you didn't drink.
I often said I often said that I'm never going to drink again. Oh, here's my short list of possible exceptions. When my mom dies, when my wife dies, when I lose my job, if I lost my house, if I got cancer. I had a short list of things that would say that it was acceptable for me to go back out and have a drink. Well, he lived.
And you've gone through several of those without drinking.
And I lived through several of those. And here's the thing. But I see it happening in somebody else. And he embraced his sobriety deepest when he needed it the most. And it was there for him. So his mom passed away. And of course, me as a sponsor, I'm like, all right, how you doing? How's your sobriety? How's your sobriety? How's your sobriety? Oh, I'm fine. I got the tax thing I'm still working on. So he didn't lose sight of the goal. The goal was to live in a better way. The goal of him was to grow spiritually. These are all things that weren't even on his radar 5 years ago. But here he is now, A, not drinking, okay, but B, leaning into his spirituality, right? Leaning into his service. I mean, I see him all the time out in the community, packing up boxes for homeless, helping somebody move, helping at the morning breakfast. He's just relentlessly serving. He's got a servant's heart. That was not the same guy that I started working with 4 or 5 years ago. Is that the kind of story you're looking for?
Yeah. So I really, I've talked to several newer folks recently, and the one thing that we should really underline is this takes time.
This takes time. Yep.
It reminds me of the story in the Big Book where the guy comes out of the tornado shelter. Look, Mom, the wind stopped blowing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like life's perfect today.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. It takes time for you to really latch on and change the tools that you use and your thinking and how you approach things and how you live, because how you live 2 years, 3 years, 4 years sober, the tools and your perspective and your thinking and who guides you is different than it is 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And, it reminds me of the guy, and we've said this so many times, 90 days sober, and I overheard him and his sponsor having a conversation. And he says, my God, man, I've been 90 days sober, and she still doesn't trust me. How much longer do I got to put up with her shit?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, she put up with his shit for 21 years.
Yeah, right.
And the ego and the expectation and the self, importance that I want 90 days to clean up 21 years of my shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just not going to work that way. That's not real life, And so it's funny how you roll through that list of, well, if these things happen, right?
They were just my little.
I had one thing
list.
on my list. I had one thing on my list. One thing. I said, if I was ever in hospice,
okay,
and I'm
right.
plugged
Isn't
up to the
bizarre how your brain
plugged
goes
up
that
to
way.
plugged up to the drugs, and I see the finish line in sight. I'm not going to mess anything up. That's when I'm going to have my solo cup with my vodka and cranberry.
Right.
And recently I've changed that because I was talking to my daughter, and we were talking about it. She goes, so at the end finish line,
mm-hmm.
she goes, you don't think you would have some cocktails? And I said, it's funny. I said, that
right.
was an opening for me mentally.
Right, absolutely.
I said, right now, I said, there's zero chance.
No.
I said, I have so committed to this.
These are moments that you can spend with your daughter in hospice.
And I am so,
right.
Even if I was by myself, I'm thinking of that movie Magnolias.
Okay.
If I was by myself, nobody by my side, and the nurse comes in and injects me, there's zero chance because I am so committed and I want to hit that finish line, in a different way. I want to be as much cognitive as I can be. And it's funny because we know a guy right now who's, in hospice and a guy that's near and dear to us. And it just reminds me, we want to hit the finish line. Right. So I'm somewhat familiar with that story, and I love how we navigate that situation with a different set of rules and principles than we would have 5 years ago.
Right. It's amazing. Your story?
So I got one guy, he's 5 years sober. So he's in AA, and he's in our Mikey and I are in a Monday night men's group, kind of a church men's group.
Yeah.
We call ourselves the Rhinos. Yep. Just because rhinos can't see in front of themselves. Big, bold, and strong, right? And he's got a, family, right? So he's sober. He got sober, and then his wife wanted a divorce, and like, hey, you know what? When you have a D or F game and you get sober and you elevate your game to A, B level,
mm-hmm.
I've literally talked to spouses that say, I can't handle him living at A level because now him living at a F game, I was able to live at a D game.
Yeah, right.
And now it's so obvious that my life is shit and I live substandard. I don't want to do the work to go up to an A game.
Right, right.
And they're like, so I'm leaving.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that. And I've talked to several people that way. So anyhow, he's got these 3 children. I've met them, beautiful kids, and he loves them beyond control. I mean, he loves them to death. They're part of his passion, purpose, drive. And I've actually had dinner with his, I think he was 12 at the time or 13. We went out, had pizza, and just got, just good kids, right? And so he's got a good relationship with like a 12 and 14-year-old kids, and he's got a 16-year-old daughter who's written him off, right? And that hurts, right? And he's trying him, and he's like, Glenn, she doesn't respond to my texts, and so we went out. We've talked many times on this, and I'm like, dude, first of all, I've had, I've gone through 3 16-year-old girls. I said there's probably a mental issue until they're 26. No offense to the ladies, because guys go through it too, but it's almost like they have so many issues, right? They have self-image issues, they got school issues, they got mean girl issues, they got body image issues. They're trying to figure themselves out. They got hormone issues. Their body's changing, right? So I'm like, look, that's one filter that comes before your name even comes into the book, before Dad has even thought about. You got all those, right? All those filters. I said, and then you got your ex-wife who's chirping and chiming in, right? Influence the situation. I said, you're coming out, sober, and who's this new dad sober, right? And so there's a lot of, I said, so lay off the pressure, because he's like, she should respect her dad. I'm like, no. It's almost like that. You should trust me. Right. I'm like, no. I'm like, no. Let's do attraction, not promotion, right? Don't force the respect. Don't force the connection. I said, so lay off the text, right? And so that's so hard for him, but okay, I'll do it. And so he's really adjusting his approach and just saying, hey, I'm here if you need anything. Once a week type thing. Hey, I'm here if you need something. Thinking about you, love you. That's all, right? Not the daily grind, morning and night, And so because he reset his expectations, that's easier on him automatically, right? And so he's taking his 2 kids to Florida for spring break from Chicago. So it's a long drive. Looking forward to a week road trip, and so he pulls up to pick up his 2 kids, and his 16-year-old girl's on the porch, bag packed. She said, "Dad, do you mind if I come?"
Wow.
And he was like, he told me a story. I'm getting chills right now. He told me that story. I had a tear in my eye, man. I just.
How long? Speaking of time, how long was that path from right off to written off Dad?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Probably a year-ish, and I've been really talking to him roughly 6 months on it, right? Okay. But when you get sober, you got to open yourself up to, right. To new input, right? New ways of thinking and new ways of trying things. And it was, it reminds me of St. Louis Steve, who was in our room for several years until he moved. And he was the same thing. He's like, Glenn, I'm jealous of you because of your redemptive relation with your daughters. And I said, don't be jealous. I said, it's going to happen for you. I said, it just takes time. And he's like, no, I said, look, just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the right stuff. And he actually lived like 5 doors down from me, and he wanted his kids to come visit, and they always said, no, Dad, they just wrote him off, just like my daughters, and then I'm cutting my grass one day, and he walks around the corner of my house with his 2 daughters. I mean, I stopped the mower, I got a tear in my eye. I mean, that's how this shit works, right? But you see it work in others first, and for me, and from you telling your stories, when you saw it happen in others, it gave you hope that it can happen with you.
Can I say this though, or ask this question? It's not. Now I'm going to make a statement. It's not about the abstinence, right? It's not about just taking alcohol, drugs out of the equation. It's about living a different life, and you've lived a different life. St. Louis Steve lived a different life. There are people who stop drinking, and they're just a dick, right? The change is not going to come. Improvement is not going to happen if you're still a dick.
Right. So that's a great, you and your genius, man. That's a great point. So, not drinking and being a dick is not the solution.
No.
For us, not drinking, living and learning a different way to live with different principles, which includes how you approach and treat others. Then what kicks in is called living amends. And from their bleacher seat, whether it's courtside or up in the bleachers, they're paying attention, right? They're always paying attention, whether you think so or not. They're paying attention. And what I have seen in my experience, I have seen amazing redemptive stories. Yours, I saw a picture of you the other day, and I see you got it pulled up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in my redemptive stories and the one we just shared, but in my history, and I'm going to say this, there's only one person. He is 20 years sober and still doesn't have a relation with his kids. And the only thing I can attribute that to is he is an absolute asshole.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't stand 1 minute of conversation with him.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. And so he obviously hasn't applied the programs of the principles of AA. And I know him in more of a medical standpoint than an AA standpoint. But he's blown away that his kids don't worship him. And that's not how this works. And he's an asshole. But I really believe if in AA, and I don't have these stories with any other programs, but in AA, if you change the way you live and you just go and live and let them go, just let them go and just be you and be the best you can be. Trust me, they're paying attention. And over time, that's attraction, right? They will be attracted back because I think there's an inner drive to have a relationship with family.
I'm going to go a little promotion on top of your attraction, okay? And here's my hard sell. Alcoholics Anonymous, for me, boils down to two things. It's pretty simple. You ready?
Yep.
It's 164 pages of the book that they published back in the 1930s. It's 164 pages. Come on, you can read that in a week, in a couple of days. You can read it in a month. Invest in 164 pages. Get the full complexity, right? So it's a simple program it's a complex program that's really simple. And then go to meetings because the meetings bring the pages to life, right?
Here's what I think. I think if you're an alcoholic, you cannot read a page and don't see yourself.
Right.
I just really so
right.
when you think about that promotion, I agree with that promotion. When I think of promotion, and this shit doesn't work, but we all do it. It's when you tell your kids, "Hey, I went to 3 meetings this week."
Yeah, right.
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, right.
I mean, who cares, right?
They want to see if you're any different
really,
this week.
that you're just saying that to make yourself feel
Right.
good, and I'm telling you, that shit doesn't work.
Right.
Just sit, live your new game, learn your new game, live your new game, and over time, underlying time, it works.
I love it. This has been great. I can't believe the half hours.
Love catching up,
this.
man. I know
Yeah.
I can sit here for 5 hours.
This was
and
good
just chat
stuff.
about this stuff, man. So many examples.
I love you, brother. We'll be
This
back.
shit works.
Be
All right,
back
bro.
next week.
See you, man.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.